All right, now let us look at the next part, okay, where we're going to build the core method, where we're going to build or rather fetch the papers, okay, for multiple trials, okay. So let us create the function, which is again going to be async in nature, and we're going to call it fetch paper for trials, okay. And this takes in the NCT IDs, which is going to be list of string, yeah, and it's going to take max per trial, okay, where I'm going to set it to 20, okay. So what is this? I think we have already discussed, right? So NCT IDs is nothing but the NCT IDs to fetch the papers for, and maximum papers per trial, okay. And here I'm just going to return a dictionary of which is going to contain string. At the key level, it is going to contain a list of dictionary of string and any, okay. And yeah, let us write the function. And what does this async function perform? It basically fetches the papers for clinical trials, okay. This is what it does. It processes trials one at a time, okay, with the sleep between each as per rate limits, okay. This is what we have already discussed, right? And yeah, finally, what does it return? Okay, it returns a dictionary, right? We have seen it returns what? It returns a dictionary that is going to map each NCT ID to its list of papers, okay. So roughly what you can expect is, let's say there is going to be an NCT ID, okay. To this NCT ID, it is going to map your different research papers, okay. For example, the PubMed ID is let's say 123, and then it is going to extract the title of that particular research paper, whatever it is going to be, and then it is going to extract the author, so on and so forth. That is broadly what it is going to do, right? So yeah, this is what it is going to return, okay. So I'll just say results are what? Results are basically a dictionary, okay, a list of dictionary of string and any data type, okay. As of now, I'm just going to, if you see, I'm going to build an empty dictionary. The results is going to be an empty dictionary to hold the results, okay. And here, what are going to be the keys in this particular dictionary? In this particular dictionary, your NCT IDs are going to be the key, and values are going to be the list of paper dictionaries, okay, what we saw, okay. All right, let us just loop. So I'm just going to say for I comma NCT ID in, I'm going to loop it over all the research paper IDs, which is NCT IDs, the research trial IDs, yeah. So it is going to process each particular trial at one time, and enumerate gives me both the index and the value, which is the NCT ID. And yeah, so I'm just going to say logger.info, and I'm just going to say processing trial, okay, I plus 1 divided by the length of whatever NCT IDs, okay. This looks fine. And then I'm just going to say NCT ID equals to NCT ID, okay. This is fine, okay. So you can actually look at the output. The output might look like, for example, it will say processing trial, and let's say we are going to look at out of 50, okay. So it's going to say processing trial 3 out of 50, and it's also going to show you the NCT ID, okay. So whatever NCT ID, so this is typically the output you can expect, okay. Cool, looks fine. Let's go to the next part. Then we're going to take the papers. So I'm just going to take paper equals to await self dot I'm going to call the fetch papers for trials. This is fetch paper for trials. It's correct, yeah. Okay. All right. And here I'm just going to put in NCT ID equals to NCT ID, yeah, and max results equals to max per trial, okay, which is basically fetch how many papers you want to fetch for one trial, okay. And then the results dictionary, in looking at the NCT ID key, I'm going to populate that with the papers information, okay, which is store the results dictionary, okay, under the trials NCT ID. That is what it will be doing, okay. And then I'll just say if I is less than the length of NCT IDs, okay, which is basically you need to sleep between the trials but not after the last one, okay. So this, what does this mean? Okay, this means not the last iteration, okay. No point sleeping after the last trial since we are done, yeah. So I'll just say await async io dot sleep, and I'll just take the rate limit sleep here, okay. So async io dot sleep is going to pause for 400 milliseconds, which is unlike time dot sleep, right, which blocks everything, yeah. So async io dot sleep releases the control back to the event loop so that the other async tasks can run during the pause, and that is the beauty of it, yeah. Yeah, so what do we return? So I'm just going to say yeah, return results, yeah, return results, which is your dictionary, okay. Then I'm just going to write the private method, which is to search for paper IDs, okay. And this is also called as what? eSearch, okay. So I'm just going to say retry, okay. Stop retry, we have already discussed this in the, when we were looking at clinical trials, so I'm not going to come again discuss that here. Max retries, okay. Then weight equals to weight exponential. I'm going to say multiplier equals to 1, min equals to 1, max equals to 8, max equals to 8, okay. Then I'm just going to say retry equals to retry if exception type, okay. And then I'm going to say httpx dot timeout exception, okay. Timeout, it's not there it seems, okay. Timeout exception comma httpx dot connect error, yeah. Looks cool, all right, okay. So only retry on network errors, it means, right. So only to retry on what? On network errors, timeout and connection failures, right. Do not this is what it is saying, do not retry on your HTTP errors, whatever your 400s and 500s, they need investigation, okay. This is what it typically means, okay. So creating another function, which is to search the paper IDs, okay. And this takes in what? It takes in the self, yeah. Then it takes in NCT ID, yeah. Then max number of results, okay. And yeah, I think this looks fine, yeah. And what does it return? It returns a list of string, yeah. And what does this do actually? Okay, it calls the PubMed eSearch function to get the paper IDs, okay, for a given NCT ID, which is your research trial ID, okay. At an argument level, it is taking NCT ID, okay, and maximum number of results, right. And what does it return? It returns a list of PubMed IT strings, okay. That is what it does, okay. So cool, this looks fine. I'll just write here try, it's going to get the response, okay. I'll just say await self dot client dot get, okay. And we're going to get the base URL, okay. And this will be suffixed by FCGI. This is the typical base URL link that we get. So this is the search, the what do you call it, the eSearch endpoint URL. Okay, if I have to get the full URL, this is how the full URL looks like. Let me just fetch it. This is how the full URL looks like. If you see here, esearch.fcgi, esearch.fcgi. Yeah, all right. Then I'm going to define the params. Okay, now here in parameters, I'm just going to put in the database. Okay, I'm going to call this as PubMed, which means what does this DB mean? Which means which database to search. Okay, so PubMed's eutils supports multiple databases. Okay, but we only need PubMed. Okay, then I'm going to say term. Okay, and in term I'm just going to say NCT ID. Okay, and SI. This looks fine. Yeah, cool. Okay, here SI means search in the secondary identifier field. Okay, see, the thing is PubMed stores the NCT IDs in this field when the authors register their trial in the paper's metadata. Okay, so this is important. Okay, these are just their own terminology. Okay, don't try to, it's okay if you're not getting a hang of this. That's totally fine. Okay, what is retmax? Retmax is nothing but maximum number of IDs to return. Retmax is return maximum. Okay, it's just a parameter name. Okay, then ret mode, I'm going to say JSON, which means how do I want the response, the return mode. I want the return mode in JSON. Okay, but thing is, see, when it comes to eSearch supports JSON, which is much easier than XML, and eFetch does not support JSON, it only supports XML. Okay, so that's the kind of tricky situation here. I'm just going to say use history. Use history, correct? Yeah, use history n. Okay, now n does not use PubMed's server side history. Okay, so server side history stores results on PubMed's server for retrieval in the follow-up queries. We do not need this. We handle our own requests. Okay, cool. This looks fantastic. Sorry, params. Okay. Client.get, where is client.get? Just a minute. This should not be here. This should be, closing bracket should be here. Okay, I think this looks fine now. Yeah, and then I'm just going to say response dot raise for status. Okay, all right. So this is going to check for the HTTP errors. Okay, 200 okay, which means continue, and if there is any 400 500 range of errors, it is going to raise the HTTP status error. Okay, the data that we're going to get is what, response.json. Okay, which is basically parse the JSON response into a Python dictionary, right? Next, I'm going to define the ID list. Okay, so from the JSON, I'm going to get eSearch result. Okay, and I'm going to keep this, if not then empty, dot get, okay, ID list, if not then just an empty list. Okay, so we're going to navigate through structured the response structure to get the paper IDs, and the response structure typically looks a bit different. Okay, when you actually when you will be getting the code in the commented section, you can look at how the output here looks like. After this, I'm just going to say await async io dot sleep, then I'm going to put rate limit sleep, and what does it return? It returns the ID list. Okay, cool. This looks fine. And after this, along with the try, I'm also going to put the exception. Okay, I'm just going to say except httpx dot timeout exception. Yeah, logger dot warning. Okay, I'm going to say timeout searching PubMed. Okay, NCT ID equals to NCT ID, and retrying looks fine, looks fabulous. I'm just going to put in raise. Okay, so re-raise so that the tenacity knows to retry this particular call. HTTP timeout exception. After timeout exception, I also need to take this one, right? HTTPX dot connect error. Okay, and I'm just going to, just a minute, yeah, here I'm just going to say logger dot warning. Okay, connection error. Okay, searching PubMed. Okay, and I'll just do one thing. I'll just directly copy paste this as it is here. Okay, all right, looks fine. And then again I'll do exception as E. Okay, then I'll just say logger dot error. Okay, I'll just say fail to search PubMed. Okay, fail to search PubMed. NCT ID equals to NCT ID, and then any error, and in error I'll just put in E, so it'll catch that particular error. Looks fine, else just returns an empty list. Okay, I'll just say return empty list. Okay, so returns the empty list of unexpected errors, and the pipeline continues with the other trials. Okay, so this looks fine. So this was which method? This method that we entirely built. Okay, now we're going to write the private method. We're going to fetch the paper details. So we're going to write the efetch method. Okay, so let's proceed with writing the efetch method. So I'm just going to say here private method. Okay, fetch paper details. Okay, and this is what efetch. Okay, so again this is going to be async in nature. Okay, async. This is going to be called as fetch paper details. Okay, it takes in what, a list of paper IDs. Okay, so I'm going to put this as a list of string. Okay, sorry, this is list of string. Yes, and what does it give in the output? A list of dictionary of string and any. Okay, and so what does this do? It basically calls PubMed's efetch. Okay, just a minute. PubMed's efetch is what it calls. Okay, and what does it do? To get the full paper details. Okay, for the list of IDs. Okay, it processes IDs in batches, right? And if you can recall, we have already defined fetch batch size, and we're going to set it to 20. Yeah, fetch batch size, and we're going to set it to 20, and this sleeps between the batches to respect the rate limits. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable called as all papers. Okay, which is what, a list of dictionary string any. Okay, as of now I'm going to set it to empty. Okay, accumulates. What does this do? It accumulates all the research papers across all the batches. Then I'm going to create a variable called as batches. Okay, and then I'm just going to say paper IDs. Okay, just going to write a list comprehension here. Okay, paper IDs, and I'm going to say I'm going to increment it, so basis the batch size. Okay, I'm going to say for I in the range of, and then I'm going to define the range, which is nothing but the length of paper IDs followed by the fetch batch size. Okay, so if you see, we're going to split the paper IDs into the batches of 20. That is what we're going to do. Correct? Yeah. And now let us just loop over this one as well. So I'll just say for every batch number, okay, and every batch in, I'm just going to enumerate this over the batches, okay, for these batches that we see here. What we will be doing is we'll be just extracting the information. So I'll be just saying fetching paper details, okay, and I'll just say batch equals to batch num, sorry, this is batch num, yeah, sorry, batch num. So this will be, we'll be just incrementing this by 1, okay, divided by the length of batches, okay. All right, looks fine. And then I'll just say papers in the batch equals to length of the batch. Looks fantastic, okay. And now I'll just say batch papers equals to await self dot fetch paper details, and here for paper IDs I'm going to put in batch, okay, which means fetch full details for this particular batch of IDs. This is what it typically means. And then I'm just going to extend that or add them to the list. You know, we cannot use append, so we'll be using the extend function, and I'll be putting the batch papers in there, okay, batch papers, okay. And then I'll just say if the batch num is less than the length of batches, okay, length of batches, then I'm just going to say await async io dot sleep and with rate limit into consideration, okay. And then finally what we're going to do is we're going to yeah, that's all. I think we are just going to return all papers. Yeah, this looks fantastic, okay. And then I'm just going to write at the rate retry, okay. I'm going to say stop equals to stop after attempt. I'm going to give max retries, wait equals to weight exponential, and then I'm going to put in multiplier equals to 1, minimum equals to 1, maximum equals to 8, and then I'm just going to say retry equals to retry if exception type, okay. I'm going to say httpx dot just a minute, I'm just going to say httpx dot timeout exception comma httpx dot connect error. Yeah, I think we have already discussed this, so no point of discussing this once again. Yeah. I don't know if this is right. Yeah, I think this is fine now. Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, okay, we'll keep on writing the next part, and in the next part what we're going to do is we're going to write the async function, okay, to fetch the batch. So I'm just going to call this as fetch batch, okay, and I'm going to say self, then I'm going to take the paper IDs. In paper IDs I'm just going to take this as the list of strings, okay, and yeah, I think this is, yeah, finally what does it return? It returns a list of dictionary of string and any, okay. And yeah, so I'm just going to write, what does it do? It fetches full details for one batch of paper IDs using efetch, Okay, and when it comes to efetch, it returns what? It returns XML and it does not return JSON, and that is the PubMed's design. Okay, so we parse this XML into Python dictionaries. That is what we will be doing. Okay, so I'll just say try. Okay, and a response equals to I'll just say await, and from the client I'm just going to get the first and foremost the base URL. Okay, because we need the endpoint URL, right? And this endpoint URL looks something like this. This is FCGI. Okay, this is how the endpoint URL looks like. Let me fetch it for you, just give me a minute. This is how it looks. So here is going to be your base URL followed by efetch.fcgi. Okay, all right, after this, okay, once I am done with this, I'm going to define the params. Okay, parameters. And in parameters, what I'll be doing is I'll be first defining DB, which is again PubMed. We have already defined this. Okay, then I'll be defining ID. Okay, I'll be just saying dot join it with the paper IDs. So we just need to join it with the paper ID. So multiple paper IDs are just going to be joined by comma. Okay, so efetch is going to accept this native for, like, you can just imagine multiple paper IDs being separated by comma, as simple as that. It's very self-explanatory. How is going to be the return mode when it comes to efetch? It's going to be XML, right? We discussed. And RET type, okay, return type is going to be abstract here. Okay, it's going to be what? It's going to be abstract. Okay, so what level of detail to return? Okay, abstract gives us title, abstract, text from the research paper, authors, journal, publication date, all of that will be generated. Okay, looks fine. Okay, and now we'll just say response dot I'll say raise for status. Okay, I was going to catch my HTML whatever HTTP status. I'm just going to say papers equals to self dot parse XML response. Okay, so it is going to take the XML text. I'm going to put this in response dot text. Okay, and so this is going to be parse. This, what is going to do? It's going to parse the XML response into the list of dictionaries. Okay, response dot text is your raw XML string. Okay, and parse XML response is the private method. Okay, so I'll just say await async io dot sleep, and then I'm just going to say rate limit sleep. And what does it return? It return the papers. Okay, yeah, and then I'm just going to say accept httpx dot timeout exception. Okay, I'm just going to say logger dot warning. I'm just going to say timeout fetching paper batch retrying. Okay, then I'm going to say accept httpx dot connect error. Okay, and I'm going to say logger dot warning. Okay, I'm going to say connection error fetching paper batch retrying. Okay, and then I'm again going to say accept exception as E, and then I'm going to say logger dot error. Okay, I'm going to say failed to fetch the paper batch. Okay, and then it is also going to catch that particular error. Yeah, and now Okay, this looks fine. It's just going to return an empty dictionary, empty list. Okay, and then we'll just write the private method. Okay, and this is the next and the last method that we're going to write, that is going to parse the XML response. Let's do that in the next video.